go forward. So in the last class, we saw a case where the wave propagation is perpendicular to the external magnetic field, which means theta is equal to 90 degrees. And we saw that there are two independent modes of propagation. One we called it eta O, which is the ordinary mode, and another one is eta X, which is the extraordinary mode. We all will come to that why it is called ordinary mode and extraordinary mode. This also we had discussed yesterday. So basically, you should remember that eta is kc by omega. So these relations which we get, eta square relations, they are nothing but the dispersion relation, because it relates how omega is a function of k. So that is the dispersion relation. How wavelength and frequency, how the frequency and the wavelength are connected for various waves. So for the for this case, which is E, the electric vector of the wave electric vector is parallel to the magnetic field or propagation. So this is a case which is non-trivial. Trivial case will be that E parallel is equal to 0. But we are not considering that case. We are taking non-trivial cases. So in that case, we saw that eta square O is 1 minus omega square, omega p square divided by omega square. So this is the dispersion relation that we got when we consider we have neglected the collisions. Nu equal to 0 means there are no collisions. So here we saw that the wave electric field is parallel to the external magnetic field. Once the electric field is parallel to the magnetic field, E actually accelerates the particles. So the motion, the velocity, perturbed velocity is in the direction of E, but that is in the same direction as the magnetic field. So this becomes 0 because they are both in the same direction. The cross product will be 0, which means the wave disturbance is along the magnetic field. So basically the wave travels as if there was no external magnetic field. There's no influence of the magnetic field on the wave propagation. Also we saw that this ordinary mode is also called the TEM mode, transverse electric magnetic mode. Both electric and magnetic perturbations are transverse to the direction of propagation. So that is exactly what I have written here. So also we saw that they are linearly polarized waves. So these are the characters that we basically observed during our discussion in our last class. So we'll see what are the conditions under which we have resonances or we have cutoffs. So here we see that E naught, delta naught square is equal to 0 for the condition where omega is equal to omega p. Omega p. So under this condition, you will see that eta O becomes 0, which means there is a cutoff. So it has a cut. This wave has a cutoff at omega equal to omega p, and it has no resonance. Resonance के लिए क्या चाहिए? We have to have eta naught square tending to infinity. So we'll have no such condition. So there are no resonances, but there's a cutoff for this particular wave propagation. Okay, so this was one of them. The second wave was basically the extraordinary mode, and we saw that the extraordinary mode, after we gave values to all these R, L, and S, we saw that this was basically, so this was a dispersion relation. So now here you will see that, and we also wrote that this omega UH is basically upper hybrid frequency. So let us see under what conditions you will have resonances or cutoffs. So you will see that this will become zero. This will become zero when, for two conditions. One, when omega is equal to omega naught, omega 0, 1. And the second case is when omega is equal to omega 0. So for both the cases, you will see that the refractive index will go to 0, which means there is a cutoff. Wave will not propagate if the frequencies match these two. So that is for the cutoff. And let us see when this tends to infinity. That will happen when omega is equal to omega UH. Also omega is equal to 0. That case also, but this is a trivial case. Anyway, there is no wave propagation. So we'll not take that case. So we have a resonance at when the frequency matches the upper hybrid frequency. So there are two cutoff conditions and one resonance condition. So this is very important. So resonance conditions you can use for heating the plasma. And this case will tell you when the wave will propagate and when they will not propagate. So if there is a cutoff, the wave will either get absorbed or get reflected. So it will not propagate beyond. So these are the two conditions that we got in our last class. Also, we saw that this frequency was the upper hybrid frequency was basically omega p squared plus the cyclotron frequency. So that is the, and it was called the extraordinary mode because this mode now depends upon the magnetic field. In the earlier case, it was called ordinary mode because the wave was propagating as if there was no external magnetic field. Whereas here, the propagation will very strictly depend upon the condition of the magnetic field. Okay, so therefore it's called an extraordinary mode, and sometimes it's also called the TM mode. TM mode is basically transverse magnetic. magnetic perturbations are transverse to the wave propagation. And these waves, we saw that they were elliptically polarized. So they are elliptically polarized because it will have partially both left hand and right hand polarized wave. So therefore it will be elliptically polarized. So this was the character of that second wave, which was the extraordinary wave. So the two conditions for cutoff, you will have two conditions where omega is equal to omega 01, omega 02, and then it has a resonance at omega is equal to the lower upper hybrid frequency. Now, see, you should remember that the ion motions were neglected in this. We said that the ions are steady, stationary with respect to the plasma motion because the whole thing is decided by the electron mobility. So therefore, because ions are having more inertia, we said that the equations you don't have to include the ion motion. But in case you use the ion motion, if you write equations with the ion motion, then what you observe is that there will be another, in addition to this condition, you will have another resonance. This wave is going to have another resonance for omega So this is called the lower hybrid. Again, this was called upper hybrid. This is called the lower hybrid frequency. So these lower hybrid frequencies are very, very important. One that has come out because you have taken the ion motion. You have to in your equation of motions, you have to include even the ion motion. So in that case, you observe that you get a second resonance for the extraordinary mode, which is at frequency which is equal to lower hybrid frequency, which is basically omega CE into omega CI. So it is a electron cyclotron motion and ion cyclotron motion. So this wave is important in tokamaks because this wave is used for heating, whereas this wave can be used to drive a current. So this is called LHCD. LHCD, lower hybrid current driving. So why is this important? See, tokamak, basically it's a pulsed system. So there's a transformer, you charge the transformer and then discharge it. When you discharge it, it produces a plasma. So that is how a plasma is produced. So, but once the stored energy is over in the transformer, the plasma will also get, it is formed and then it gets recombined. So basically, it is formed and then it is destroyed also. So basically, it's a pulsed device. But if you want to use tokamak as a fusion reactor to produce energy continuously, what you have to do now is that you cannot use a pulse system. It has to be a continuous system. So continuous system, how do you do? See, transformer is producing electric field which generates a electric field inside the plasma. So that is how there is a current formed inside the plasma. So that is the one which is, so the external transformer is basically inducing an electric field inside the plasma which produces a current, plasma current. But once the transformer has got discharged, the plasma is over. So the current which was there has got finished. So there's no more current inside the plasma, so there's no plasma also. But this plasma is this current is basically the one which is generating the plasma and also heating the plasma, I square R. So once the current is over, plasma is over. But if you want to make it continuous, what is done is you have to use radio frequency waves to generate that current. So basically what you are doing is you have a transformer which produces plasma current, and before it falls off you have a RF which is LHCD, lower hybrid current drive. So earlier the current was being driven by the transformer. Okay. Any question? Sibi, Joseph, is there any question?
No, sir.
Oh, okay, okay. So in the earlier stages, what was happening was this is because of the transformer. What I'm drawing is the current, plasma current versus time. So once the transformer has got discharged, this has to come down. Will not come down this way, but slowly it has to come down. So to keep this current going, what you have to do now is you have to shine some RF wave, lower hybrid current drive. So I told you these RF waves can be used for heating also. But what is heating? Heating means it's a velocity in all directions. So average velocity. When you have an average velocity, it is the heating. But now suppose I put antennas in such a, you phase the antennas in such a way that there is no there is no heating going on, which means velocity is not getting randomized, but it has velocity only in one direction. So I can always do that by phasing the antennas properly. So that is exactly what is done here. Instead of heating is to increase the average velocity of the particles, electrons and ions. Instead, what I can do is I can phase the antennas in such a way that there is no average velocity increasing. There is no mixing of all the velocities, but velocity will be only in one direction. So that will generate a current. So that is how the lower hybrid waves can generate a current. So therefore, now this portion of the current is now generated by the LHCD. And once this power is over, this will also fall off. So then what is done is, in the meantime, in this time, the transformer is again charged. So again the current will start flowing because of the transformer. So like that, you will have alternatively the transformer and the LHCD, transformer LHCD. That is how you can have the current for almost few hours. So that is how you can convert a pulsed system, which is a tokamak is a pulsed system, which can be converted into a continuous system. Because when you are trying to get the energy power from the fusion power from the tokamaks, you have to make it continuous. You cannot have pulsed system. So you'll be producing current only in this direction. only in this portion you'll be producing the fusion power. That is not correct. That is not the way you should be having the reactors. So reactor has to be continuous. So I can have this operation continuously. So alternatively there will be transformer and then LHCD, lower hybrid current drive. So that is the reason why this. So when you take ion motion into the description of the plasma, you get another resonance which is called the lower hybrid. This was upper hybrid. This is the lower hybrid. The frequency is given as product of the electron cyclotron frequency and the ion cyclotron frequency. So basically, this is the root of that. So it's in between these two frequencies. So I told you these are all gigahertz. Electron cyclotron frequency is gigahertz. These are all megahertz. So somewhere in between, you will have this frequency. So that frequency can be used to do this kind of job. So very interesting, because now you're made the transformer, the whole tokamak machine, a continuous operation machine. So it can be used as a power generating device. So a very important concept which you should, and that has come from our this theory. Waves traveling perpendicular to the magnetic field, external magnetic field. So very important. You should remember this. Okay. This one.
Hello, sir.
Any question?
Sir, I have a one doubt.
Yeah.
Sir, instead of one transformer, if we use multiple transformer, then we
Oh,
can do the same. Actually, I don't know whether it costs more or there are other reasons, but it's
yes.
just
Your idea is good, but you should ask an electrical engineer. If he couples two transformers, what are the issues? Very, very tough. If they are slow, even if by mistake it is out of phase, there will be accidents. So two transformers coupling is not an easy job. Okay, and also the thing that you're saying, yeah, one transformer drives current in one direction, then after it's over, the second transformer will take over. So this kind of operation cannot be done by coupling two transformers. So if you discuss with the electrical engineer, he'll tell you what are the issues. There are plenty of issues. So see, for for this application, there are certain other applications where in IPR we thought of using two transformer coupling, but then it becomes extremely difficult. So electrical engineers will not like to couple two transformers. Those two transformers have to be perfectly identical. Any small change in phase can create havoc. So good that you got this doubt, but then you should discuss this with an electrical engineer, power electronics people, or power engineers. So he'll tell you that, and also remember, these are not ordinary transformers. They're all 1 MVA, megavolt ampere. So these are all huge transformers. Small accident, there's nothing like small accident. It is always a huge accident. So if you have visited IPR, you'll see that these transformers, we have a separate bay. Half of IPR is just a substation where we have these huge transformers. So 1 MVA is a very, very big transformer. And any small mistake becomes a big accident. So small transformers, I can always take the risk of paralleling them. These are called paralleling transformers. So there are issues. So instead, what people do is they couple the RF power and the transformer, and they do it alternatively, so that you can make it a reactor grade tokamak. These are called reactor grade because you can operate it for very long time. So therefore, you can produce energy for very long time. It's not a pulse system anymore. Okay. So that was about LHCD, lower hybrid current drive. So this is all what we discussed yesterday. But today I want to tell you something about this CMA diagram. Very interesting diagram. This diagram was basically given by three scientists. I'll write down their names. So C is basically C. So they are the three scientists who gave this diagram. So basically this diagram is a very compact alternative way of presenting the solutions for the various dispersion relations that we have come across. So essentially what is this information? They got this idea because of the dispersion relation, which was basically relation which was having contacts with UK, U, X, so all those quantities, L, R, things like that. So all these things are related to frequencies. All these things are normalized frequencies. Omega P by omega square, omega C E by omega square. So that kind of these are all normalized frequencies. So that is the reason how they got this idea that you should have now a diagram in which I'll tell you what exactly is this diagram. And they came up with this idea that you should have a diagram which can explain all the wave motions, propagations, along with its resonances and cutoffs. So this is what they draw is this is x direction, y. So along x, what they do is along this direction they have omega p square by omega square. So that is what is plotted along the x direction. And what is plotted along the y direction is omega CE square by omega square. So what they are drawing is x versus y square. So that is the figure that you get. So this is called the CMA diagram. Essentially, it's a very complicated diagram. If you see some textbook, you'll see that I cannot even draw that. So complicated. Because the whole thing is divided into various regions and there are 18 portions. Each portion will give you propagation of these waves along with its wavefronts, how the wavefronts look like. So from that they'll know whether it's a slow wave or a fast wave. Also it will tell you where it has a cutoff, where it has resonances. So this whole diagram is very, very busy. Very complicated this drawing, this one. But it displays all the resonances and cutoffs as a function of both x and y square. So theta square equal to 0, theta square equal tending to infinity. Both these things it will show for all the waves as a function of x and y square. That's the advantage. Now, when I write this, you should quickly remember that omega c is basically EB by N. So basically what you're drawing is magnetic field. B is magnetic field. Here it is N E square by M. P omega P is basically N E square by M. So essentially you're drawing as a function of density. So N is basically density and B is magnetic field. So what you're drawing is density versus magnetic field, and omega is basically increasing in this direction. So it will basically in the radial direction. So therefore, for any plasma, inhomogeneous plasma, so for varying density, varying magnetic field, you'll see how the waves propagate. So this diagram will give you a picture of the whole plasma, experimental plasma, because experimental plasmas are all inhomogeneous. Just densities are varying, they are not homogeneous. Homogeneous is all theoretical. Experimentally, when you produce a plasma, you'll see that some regions you'll have more density, some regions you have less density. So it's always a inhomogeneous system. Similarly, you will have varying magnetic fields. The strength may be, see, it is having direction in the along the y-axis, but it could be the intensity may be varying in the z direction along the direction of propagation of the wave. So complicated information is available on this diagram. So it tells you what kind of waves are propagating, and you'll also see that at certain stages the waves they disappear, and again after some time you'll start seeing the waves reappearing because there's a matching of the magnetic field and density variations in some region. So in maybe some region it propagates. It could be propagating in this region, but suddenly you'll see that disappears and again it reappears. So this is possible. So all these things you can see from the diagram. Theoretically, if I do the calculations and all, you'll not precisely see it is appearing, disappearing, and again appearing. So that feeling you get when you see the whole diagram. So that's the importance of this diagram. Okay. So it's a very powerful method for clarifying, for classification of cold plasma waves. So CMA diagram is very, though it's very complicated. If you see one of the, I don't know how to show you that. Any textbook, if you take up, Bittencourt, you can see this whole diagram is very complicated because the whole thing is divided into 18 regions. 18 regions of varying density, varying magnetic field, and wave propagation. So all this is shown there. And they also show the wave fronts, the shape of the wave fronts, whether the phase velocity and group velocity of the two waves, whether they are greater than the velocity of light. So all those details you will see in the diagram. So full picture about the plasma. So if I summarize what exactly this diagram gives you, so for all the cold plasma waves are equal to infinity. So you see that electron cyclotron wave, electron cyclotron resonance. For L equal to infinity, you have ion cyclotron resonance. You will see S equal to 0. You have the upper hybrid resonance, and then lower hybrid. So all these details you will see in the diagram. And in addition to the resonances, you'll see all the cutoffs also. Cutoffs you'll see at R equal to 0, L equal to 0, and P equal to 0. So for all these things, so basically the CMA diagram is a map of the actual plasma, inhomogeneous plasma, varying density, varying magnetic field. What is happening to the wave propagation, whole plasma wave propagation? So with all the resonances, cutoffs, so very interesting. Yeah. So what are the uses of such a diagram? This diagram is very useful to investigate how a given mode evolves as it propagates through a spatially inhomogeneous plasma. I told you, it will propagate in one region of the graph. Suddenly you'll see that there is disappearance because there are cutoffs, but again it will start appearing. So that kind of so total evolution of the wave. So that way this diagram is very useful. You should be able to. I think maybe next class I'll try to make you. I'll show you one of the such graphs and try to explain what is given in all those 18 regions. The whole space, x y square space has been divided into 18 different regions, and in each region, what are the various wave propagations, what are the cutoffs, what are the resonances, all those details. So maybe next class I'll do that. And also some special frequencies which I have to discuss with you. So these are two things that I would like to discuss next class. Some special phenomena giving rise to electromagnetic waves. So these are called Whistler waves. Whistlers are basically waves which are generated during the lightning. Whenever there's a lightning or thunder in Earth's atmosphere, these waves are produced in the ionosphere and they propagate all along. So these things we'll discuss next class. So any doubts or any questions? Please feel free to ask questions. Let me tell you, there are no questions are stupid questions. Every question is important. So don't be under the impression that you have some stupid question. There's nothing like stupid question. Question is always an important doubt that you have got. So please open up, ask questions so that I can give you more information. Any one of you, if you have doubts or some clarification you need before I get to the special topic. Yeah, anyone? No? लेकिन आप एक काम कीजिए, you have to actually read this book once. Once you read, you will get doubts. I think then discussion becomes more interactive. Huh? Then I'll also enjoy teaching you people. When I get a lot of questions from you people, that makes the whole class lively. Okay? So
Sir, I
Pooja,
had a doubt.
yeah, Ashwin Boli.
Uh, right now you just gave a recap of last lecture where you
Okay.
said that uh, omega 01 and omega 02 are
Two frequencies that we developed. I
yeah,
think we about three classes back.
yeah.
We,
So what does its negative value signify? Let us say minus omega 01. So what does that signify?
नहीं वो minus नहीं है वो.
No, sir.
Omega square. See, you're talking about that omega square minus omega 01 square.
Yeah. So you said that the solution
Uh-huh.
for cutoff is omega 01, but mathematically we will also get another one where minus omega 01 is also a solution.
Oh, okay.
So
So, you have to see whether that is perfectly imaginary or real. Okay, if there is
yeah,
something is real, then waves will damp out. If it is imaginary, it is evanescent. Matlab, you will not observe any wave moving. So if it is real, then you'll see something. The propagation actually becomes um, more magnified. Any disturbance becomes magnified. Growth of perturbation. So that is when it is real. When it is imaginary, then there is a damping of the wave, which means slowly the wave will damp out, and then you will not see any propagation inside the. So the positive and negative sign is basically giving you the. See, what we have got is for eta square.
yeah,
Eta square है ना? So उसमें दो waves आ रहा है. But now what is eta? Eta square मतलब eta means you'll have two roots now, positive and negative.
yeah.
So you'll have, it will show you wave moves in which direction. So that is when you consider, because the whole thing is considered as a complex number. So you have real and imaginary part. So the real part tells you whether the disturbance is increasing or decreasing. And the imaginary part tells you whether the waves are getting absorbed or it gets enhanced. So
Okay.
both these things, direction of the propagation and also whether it is getting damped or there is a growth of perturbation. So the negative sign eta square का जो दो roots आएंगे, it will tell you those details. That is also important. Huh? Good, you asked this question.
Thank
So
you, sir.
any more questions? Okay. So
And also, sir, one more question.
yeah,
Sir,
बोलिए.
in another somewhere else, I saw lower hybrid frequency also has omega pi term.
Oh yeah. Actually,
So
I have neglected the ion motion. So wherever I have written electron cyclotron, you have to add ion cyclotron also. But you will see that because there is a ratio, if you see, mass ka ratio,
yeah,
electron mass to ion mass, so
yeah.
almost 1,000 times lower. So because of that, the frequencies are also quite small. So you
So,
can
sir,
actually neglect.
is it only in cold plasma or in
Ah,
warm plasma it has some difference
yes,
of
warm plasma में क्या होगा? You can have preferential ion heating. So then ions will start dominating, not the electrons, because the frequencies are such that electron will not respond to those waves. It's the ions which will respond. Anything heavy will respond to that wave. So then warm usme na, when the plasma you consider warm plasma, you'll see that ions become important because it's hot. Hot means either electrons are hot or ions are hot. Especially if you
Yeah.
do, for example, if I use different types of heating process, like RF heating, I can do either electron heating or I can do ion heating. If I have neutral beam heating, it's basically ions which are getting heated up, not the electrons. Electrons will gain energy by the collisions between ions and electrons. But basically, the technique is to heat the ions because you are using frequencies which are in megahertz. Electrons will not respond to that because they are much faster than they are all gigahertz. So ions will
Yeah.
respond. So therefore, these waves will preferentially heat the ions. Okay.
Hmm.
So in that case, the whole picture changes. Ions become more important than the electron motion. When you have neutral beam heating or you are having ion cyclotron heating, where preferentially you are heating the ions. So you'll see that ion temperature is larger than electron temperature. Densities are also higher. Electrons are thrown out of the system, whereas ions are retained. So therefore, you'll have that ion motion becomes more useful than the electron motion. So such cases, in core plasma, we are not interested because it's the electrons which are dominating. So wherever I have written omega CE, you have to add basically omega CE plus omega pi. And then omega PE जहाँ दिखा था हमने plasma
Huh.
frequency. It is not just electron plasma frequency. You have to add the ion plasma frequency also. So it's the addition of both omega Ci and omega Ce. But if you calculate the two values, omega Ci is very large quantity. Omega Ci is very small. Anything
Yeah.
related to the electrons will be much higher. So even if you see in the magnetic field, electrons gyrate much faster than the ions because ions have large mass. So there's a lot of inertia. It will not
Thank you, sir.
respond so quickly to the magnetic field. Okay. Good here, Ashwin. You asked these questions. So I invite more questions from other colleagues. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Please, Bully.
Sir, it's not related with this, but I have one question. If there is one transformer and I am charging it and I am giving some amount of energy to it, suppose it's
Okay.
E, then sir,
Okay.
how much percentage of that energy is going to use for plasma?
Oh, there's no way I can discuss the tokamak construction with you people. But anyway, very short question answer will be that see there is a central solenoid which is the primary of the transformer, and plasma becomes the not plasma the gas neutral gas becomes the secondary of the transformer. So whenever you change flux in the primary of the transformer, there is a EMF induced in the secondary. Secondary is nothing but the gas, the neutral gas, hydrogen. So because you have induced electric field, EMF in the secondary, which is the gas. So this electric field is like voltage applied, voltage for every centimeter. So this voltage basically breaks down the gas. So it breaks down the gas to, from molecules, it breaks down to atoms. And from atoms, it actually ionizes the electron. So therefore, you'll have positive ions, negative ions separate. So all this is happening because you have changed the flux in the primary of the transformer, which has induced an electric field in the secondary. Secondary is nothing but the neutral gas. And gas के अंदर when you have an EMF generated, this EMF is like voltage, applied voltage to the gas. When you do that, you are basically breaking down the gas molecules into atoms and then atoms into electrons and ions. That is ionization process. So all this energy is going from the transformer action. So the energy required to break down the gas plus production of plasma also heat the plasma, because once you have a voltage inside the plasma, you can drive a current, and when there's a current flowing inside the plasma, it will continuously heat the plasma. I square R. R is the resistivity of the plasma, I is the current. So I can, depending upon the how much is the current, I can continuously keep heating the electrons and ions. So plasma becomes hotter and hotter. The temperature keeps on increasing. But only problem is that this current, when it becomes slightly higher, the plasma is so hot that the resistivity becomes zero. Then you cannot heat the plasma by current, because I square R. If R becomes zero, I square R is zero. So I cannot heat the plasma beyond a certain stage. So that is a failure of ohmic heating. This is called ohmic heating, current through current. So that is happening in a tokamak. So that is the reason why we need auxiliary way of heating the electrons and ions. So neutral beams, RF heating, all those things, because the current has failed to heat the plasma. The idea is to heat the plasma to temperatures where fusion can take place. But that has failed because current cannot heat it continuously. It can go only till certain temperature. The moment it goes to certain temperature, resistivity of the plasma becomes zero. Once R becomes zero, I square R is zero. So there is no more heating going on in the plasma because of the current. So that is failure of ohmic heating. So therefore I need auxiliary way of heating the plasma. That is basically neutral beam heating, RF heating. So RF may I can use any frequency to either heat the electrons or ions, or I can use some lower hybrid, upper hybrid, which can heat both electrons and ions preferentially. In addition, I can also phase the antennas in such a way that I don't want the heating, but I can drive a current. That is what we saw is LHCD, lower hybrid current drive. So I can either heat or generate a current because of the RF waves. So all these things can be done by the radio frequency waves. Okay, I hope I have answered your question. How
Sir, thank you, sir.
transformer energy is utilized to produce a plasma in a neutral gas. Okay. Someday, if I get, I can talk more about the tokamak, the construction of tokamak, why the construction is so complicated. So all those details, like people, experimentalists, would like to work in a very simple experimental apparatus, so that the calculations, analysis, and the mathematics become simple. But then, why are we going into a construction of a tokamak which is so complicated geometrically? That is because there are certain advantages of going for a complex geometry. Though we have a lot of other associated evils with that, because mathematics becomes very, very tough. It's a toroidal system, which is not a linear cylindrical system or a spherical system. It's a toroidal system, so things become very, very complicated. But still, we have no option but to go for such a complicated geometry. So someday, if I get, we can discuss this part. Very interesting. Why people went for such complicated geometries? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? You have to know all these details before you go to to understand what is a tokamak. Okay. So for the special topics, basically, if you remember a few days back, I was discussing something called SOC, and I have shared some. There's a book which I've shared with you people, and I'm sure some of you, if you read, will get really excited by those. In which I had shown SOC, self-organized criticality. So basically, if I am drawing the temperature or density or so on, density of electrons or temperature as a function of R. Told you that this is a profile which is preferred by the plasma. So I showed only one direction, from 0 to positive direction. You can have a similar. You have a full profile, minus A to plus A. So now there's something called sand pile. If you have read about this, suppose what I do is I have sand and keep on pouring here. And also here, see, I told you that if I make the profile this, the plasma will see that I get back to this profile, because plasma prefers this profile. So you can understand this by simple. If I keep on pouring sand from top, it keeps on forming, it keeps on falling like that, and after some time you'll see that there's a profile of this kind. The moment you add more and more sand and try to increase the profile like this, but you'll see that the moment such profile will not be stable, immediately the sand will fall off. So from this it will come back to this. So sand pile experiment. If you read that book which I have shared with you, first chapter is about sand pile. Exactly, sand will also do the same thing which the plasma is also doing. So any complex system will always do this kind of thing. It will have its own preferred profiles. You try to increase or change the profile, it will not accept. It will react back and see that it gets back to the preferred profile. Same thing like sand. When I put sand, slowly it will pile up and form a profile, density profile. But now if I add more and more sand, try to make it this, immediately you'll see that this will fall back to this, because sand will slide from this point and come back to this. So this is exactly the way the complex systems work. So you can take any complex system, for example, any exotic phenomena happening in nature, like you have volcanoes, earthquakes, or hurricanes. Everything can be explained by this. It's a pile up of energy, and after some time you'll see that, see, even cyclones is exact. You can explain the whole thing by this process of self-organized criticality. So you'll see that also. You must have seen in some of these TV channels, twisters. What are these twisters? They are very dangerous. It basically is forming because of vortices formed inside the wind direction. So it will become so damaging that it can destroy cities. Twisters. It's a rotation of the. It will take anything into the system. like cars or people, it will just take them round. And that is happening because of curl of V. If a fluid is not, if it is incompressible, you'll have this equal to 0. So then you'll have omega, which is curl of V. So basically this quantity is giving rise to vortices. Vortices you must have seen in various places. Cyclones are all because of vortices formed in the wind directions. Any pressure gradient depression will cause this vortices formed. So these vortices can sometimes become twisters. It will take the whole city and rotate in such a direction that the energy available there is so large, it can destroy the cities. These are called twisters. So all these things can be explained by this self-organized criticality. So in addition, see, there are lots of exotic phenomena taking place in the nature. Like for example, you must have heard of Aurora Borealis. Any one of you? Aurora Borealis?
Yes, sir.
Ah,
No, sir.
yes. Very interesting things happening in northern pole and southern pole. Very beautiful coloring takes place in the sky. What is it due to? It is nothing but the Earth's magnetic field, the particles coming out from the solar wind get trapped, protons and electrons. So these things, when they travel in the Earth's atmosphere, they do ionization of the gas molecules, oxygen or nitrogen, which is available in the air. So there you will see excitation, de-excitation process in the oxygen molecules, oxygen atoms, or nitrogen. So you'll see beautiful green colors, blue colors all over the sky. Especially if you go to the countries like Norway, Sweden, all those countries, Finland, you see beautiful things happening, and more so during winter, very close to sunset, you'll see beautiful coloring in the sky. So that is Aurora Borealis. Of course, lightning and thunder is a beautiful thing. Lightning has a lot of plasma physics there. So someday, if I'm very excited by this phenomena taking place in the Earth's atmosphere. So tomorrow, when we next time when we discuss about the Whistler waves are nothing but they are the ones which are produced by the lightning. So it is something like a whistle, high frequency.
Suzu,
Yeah, yeah, Kavita.
I have a question.
बोलिए, बोलिए.
So, if Sun is made of plasma, people say it's made of plasma. It has
Okay,
5,700 Kelvin degree temperature. Uh,
okay.
but the lightning is having more temperature than the sun, and both are plasmas. How is that working? Like, shouldn't be sun which is having nuclear fusion also be hotter than the
Oh,
lightning?
okay, okay. Okay, so see, you have to now worry about dimensions. You see the dimension of the sun, and you see the dimension of the lightning process. Lightning process, you must have seen, it's a very, very, very sharp thing happening in a very localized region. Lot of current, say mega amperes of current flowing in a very short distance, not distance, region. So, so much of current flowing only in that small region of that Earth's atmosphere. So therefore, that current, which is few hundreds of mega amperes, will produce a lot of ionization process. So there is a plasma produced. So that is the brightness that you see during the lightning. Actually, there is a book on lightning process. I can share with you people. Very interesting. The whole physics is discussed about what is lightning, why lightning takes place. First of all, why how clouds are formed, why there's a charging of clouds, and how it produces lightning between clouds and also lightning between the cloud and the earth. So very interesting physics going on there. So when you have lightning between the well, discharge between the clouds and the earth, then you get this lightning. And why lightning has such funny directions, it is not just straight. It keeps on moving in all directions, and it keeps on splitting up into various
It's
fractals.
ionizing the atmosphere, I think so.
It's in the Earth's atmosphere, no?
Yeah, so it's ionizing the atmosphere
Yeah.
gases might be.
But also you see the direction. It is not just directed towards the Earth. See, Earth has to provide grounding, which means electrons. It has to supply electrons to all this so that there's a return current. So that is how the whole circuit is complete. So electrons it gets from the Earth. Earth is a good collection, huge collection of a storage of electrons. So that is what the lightning is looking for, because it has to discharge. That discharge is taking place because of the electrons, and that it has to receive from the Earth. So that is how you have lightning striking the Earth surface. So the direction is not just perpendicular distance between the cloud and this Earth. There's a lot of motion here and there. So why is it happening that way? So there is a lot of emission of ultraviolet waves, ultraviolet rays. So they produce ionization of themselves. So that is how the whole direction becomes very, very haphazard. It is not straightforward. So very interesting physics going on, atomic physics going on there. I think I I actually love this subject. Sometimes I can discuss with you more details about the full lightning process, formation of clouds first of all, and then charging of clouds, and then how lightning takes place between clouds and between clouds and the earth, the return currents, all these things are important. So a lot of electrical engineering, physics, of course, physics is maximum. So that is about lightning. Thunder is again very interesting. How it produces so much of sound, shock waves, how shock waves are produced, why so much of sound is produced during the thunder. Very interesting. You must remember that in BSc we have done experiments with glass columns, and you use a tuning fork, and then you have a resonance in the air column. So the same thing you can extend it to understanding the thunder, except that in thunder you are producing some shock waves. So that is the reason why you hear huge sound and for very short time. So other interesting things, someday I would like to also discuss this natural fission reactors. There are uranium mines on Earth which have got converted into reactors. It's a natural fission reactor in the Earth. So I can discuss some very interesting things about these things happening in nature. Natural fusion reactors, of course, they're all stars, and sun is a fusion reactor. Again, volcanoes, they are interesting, very interesting physics wise. Volcanoes, earthquakes, cyclones and storms, twisters. So I think you should, in addition to your syllabus, of course, syllabus is important. In addition, sometimes you should read these things also. Because they're all related to your syllabus. It's not that it is not related. They're all related because you're studying plasma physics. Most of them have plasma physics involved. So, and lot of information is available. I can share. I have information on all these things. We can share a lot of information. There are lots of good TED talks also on each of these topics. And TED talks given by physicists, not ordinary people, physicists. So lot of physics into discussion. So I think I'll stop here unless there are some questions from you people. So the things that I described to you, the exotic phenomena in nature, I think you people should also read about it. If not too much of details, but at least you should know cursory what is happening because you are all physics students. Okay? Any questions? Good. Today was very interactive.
Sir, I want to know a little about Van Allen bells, radiation bells.
Now, what is it?
You spoke, today you spoke about auroras, right? Auroras and
Aurora
nothing
borealis.
else.
Yeah, yeah.
There are Van Allen bells, radiation bells. I want to know a little about them. I
I
mean,
could not get you. Can you tell me what is Alan?
today today you were talking about auroras, right? And
Okay.
they are making the corona
Yeah.
mass ejection. So there
Okay.
is one more thing which I was reading upon was Van Allen radiation bells.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. These are belts formed around some planets, like Saturn, Jupiter. These are all belts formed around the. There are satellites which are going around the planets. I'm. Oh, is that what you're talking about, or it's something else? Van
I
Allen.
think so probably that
Huh.
only.
So there are things which are captured by this gravitational field of Jupiter and Neptune. So they go round and round. So they form. So Saturn also does the same thing. Saturn planet. So there are belts all around. These belts are nothing but they are dusty plasma. They are all plasma along with dust. So all round, going round the planet.
It's like coronal mass ejection, sir. Just like coronal mass ejection.
So whatever is thrown out from the sun also gets captured into one of these gravitational field. Like some of them gets captured in the Earth's gravitational field. Similarly,
So
they get
velocity
captured.
drift is around 300 kilometer per second, which is pretty
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
high speed.
Yeah, that is because of centripetal force. See, otherwise it will fall into the planet. It has to have that kind of velocity to be stable, which will have a stable orbit. That velocity has to be that fast, no? Otherwise it will fall into the planet. So for stability, you need that kind of. It has to balance the centripetal and centrifugal forces, no? So that is the reason why you form the belt. The two forces are balanced. So at that orbit radius, it will keep on going round and round, and it's going on for immemorial, millions of years. So very interesting. There are certain colleagues of mine who worked on Saturn belts. No? So plasmas formed around these planets and how they trap all the impurities and things like that. And very interesting physics of plasmas, but these are called dusty plasmas. So there's plasma which has electrons, ions, neutrals. In addition, you have got dust, and this dust gets charged up. So these dusts are very, very heavy compared to electrons and ions. So dusty
I
plasma.
think so. These are responsible for stars having this very far infrared radiations and NIR and FIRs. So we
Oh yeah,
can make
that is.
CCD plot of the stars. Like I was studying on classical B stars and
Oh, very good. Oh, good, good.
yeah. So
Yeah, they are all part of that. Yeah.
every plasmas and discretion disk were made around them.
Discretion is
Like
okay. Okay.
do the spectroscopy of those.
So accretion, how accretion takes place. So you're studying that part.
I was like studying it, but it didn't get into my mind. I was like really slow. It was
Okay,
really
okay.
tough.
So accretion is a very interesting. If you can meet some people working in this area in PRL, accretion, the whole process of the physics of accretion of materials, how planets are formed. So there's a huge department in PRL which is working in this area. Yeah, these topics are quite interesting. With accretion again, has a lot of physics there. Okay, I think.
Thank you, sir, for today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, and make it more interactive. I really like this lecture because of interaction. Well, I also come to know plenty of things when you people discuss with me. That is how I can widen my area of research, area of understanding. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll meet again. Okay, then I'll call it a day.